Quick small correction from my video this morning while I sit at this red light. It is John 1:1. I said it was Genesis 1:1. I don't know any of my Bible references. I just know some things in my head and mainly understand by intuition what God has given us. In the beginning, John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. That's talking about Jesus. I don't know who doesn't understand that, but that's Jesus. And if you cut off Jesus from being divinity and just call him, a spiritual creature or the most special angel, that makes me want to throw up, first off. But you are cutting yourself and everyone who thinks that way. You're cutting them off from the love of Jesus, all the things that wash away your sin, your guilt, your shame. Now, the thing they do in Baptist circles is they'll give you Jesus, but then they'll give you a bunch of rules and say you don't follow them good. So here's additional guilt and shame from other humans. That's why in my isolation, I've actually felt the peace of God more than ever before, because I no longer had people telling me the wrong thing in my head. I only had the Word of God. And I did that thing called Awana when I was a kid, made me memorize all these Bible verses. Now, they weren't mean about it. You could show up and know no Bible verses and just do game time and Bible verses and no one would care. No one would even notice. Or they would just ask, did you memorize any verses? And they would be like, oh, well, if you didn't do it, just memorize it right now and say it right back to me. And here, I'll still give you the jewel. I'll still give you the piece of candy. And if you said, no, I don't want to, they would have said, okay, that's fine. Maybe just listen to some other people say them. They would have been nice to you about it. So maybe that's what I'm not grateful for enough, is that while as I grew up and sought like a true spiritual leader, like somebody who would really give me the good stuff, not to mention there's this huge disconnect where it's like, oh, you're a woman, so go with the women. It's like, no, the men are supposed to understand women enough to teach them. They're supposed to understand their own wives, their own daughters, their own family. But there's this big distrust, like, ooh, women and men get together sometimes. Like, if you can't trust your man, he don't need to be a spiritual leader of anybody. He don't need to be a spiritual leader of a pastor. You know him best, woman. You're not going to let him teach anybody? And that's a huge thing. But basically, yeah, so like if I would call and be like, I need to talk about this, they would send me to the women, and I would be sitting there speaking to the women of these pastors, explaining my problems, and they would be agreeing with me so much that I would realize her husband was doing the same thing to her that mine was to me. But she was covering it up and I wasn't.